The black Jeep Cherokee turned onto Constitution Avenue, entering the Capitol Mall at exactly the predicted time. Standing in the shadow of a tall curtain, a lissome figure lowered his high-powered binoculars and began to dress. Scar tissue covered half of the watcher's back, along with what remained of his right arm. Before donning a shirt, he exchanged the functional prosthetic below his forearm with an aesthetic one, so nicely sculpted that it would fool a casual observer, even if the observer were standing right next to him. Despite the ugly scars, the man moved with measured grace, taking care to keep the tail of his white linen shirt from brushing the gaudy striped carpet as he lifted it from the bed. His hotel room was adequate, but the institutional-grade carpet offended his bare feet as much as it offended his eyes. He would have much preferred the L'Enfant Plaza Hotel down the road. At least that establishment put pads under their carpets. Unfortunately, their penthouse did not offer the commanding view of the Eastern Capitol Mall that today's mission required. With well-practiced movements, he used his one good hand to button his shirt and then placed a ball cap atop his bald head. He kept it shaven because the scar tissue from his burns prevented his hair from growing normally. This was not vanity. He had learned over the past 9 years that appearances played a vital role in achieving one's goals. At times, letting his wounds show suited his purpose. Other situations demanded a more pleasing veneer, and he had acquired the skill and the resources, such as the very expensive prosthetic, to meet that demand. Like his appearance, the man's name shifted quite often. Sheikh Rahman, Omar Alim, Mustafa Khan. He traveled and worked under many aliases, but he held only one title. He was the Qayyum, the emissary of the Mahdi, the voice declaring a new age. The Qayyum slipped on a jacket and then returned to the window to check the position of his target. The Jeep was now crossing Constitution Avenue. At this range, and from the elevated position of his hotel suite, he could not see the driver through the windshield, but in his mind's eye he saw him quite clearly. He saw the stern expression, those blue eyes searching the road ahead, always searching. He had studied the man for so long that he saw those eyes in every dream and every nightmare. The Qayyum had studied his target as one should study any opponent, by examining his body of work. That was no easy task, for this man was a ghost, and one does not observe a ghost directly, at least not at first. At the start, one observes the effect a ghost has on its environment, the wreckage it leaves when it passes on. The Qayyum had learned to follow the signature his target left behind. Yemen, Afghanistan, Venezuela, China. The Qayyum had traced the blond man's movements across deserts and oceans, digging through the rubble he left in his wake. Capitalizing on the bitterness of survivors and the greed of low-level clerks, he had reconstructed his opponent's previous games one move at a time, pawn, bishop, and king, so that he could understand every maneuver. By now he knew his opponent better than he knew himself. He knew how this man planned and how he operated. He had learned precisely how the blond man's brain worked. In his studies, the Qayyum had come to know his opponent's family, too, his wife and child, his clownish friend, even his boorish, overbearing boss. He wondered how these peripheral players would weather the coming tribulation, and how they would move on in the peace that followed, if any of them survived. The black Jeep crossed Madison Drive, and the Qayyum once again set down his binoculars. With his good hand, he picked up a burner phone and dialed the most recent number. An understandably nervous young voice answered.
"Yes."
"It is time, Jamal,"
said the Qayyum in a low and comforting voice.
"It is time to begin."
Jamal dropped his cell phone on the passenger seat. He pulled a tiny Ziploc bag from his pocket, dumped the 2 white pills it contained into his mouth, and forced them down with a gulp from a bottle of water. He set the bottle on the passenger seat as well, without replacing the cap, so that it tipped over and spilled.